How do you do, sir?
Sir.
Piers Morgan. Good to see you.
I'm hard of hearing. You got to speak real loud.
Okay. In both ears, or?
Both ears are hard of hearing.
Okay. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how we were going to do it.
I'm just going to go through everything that's happened to you. And I just want you to be as honest as you want to be, you know?
That's what I'd like, to get the truth out. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I've been granted a rare interview with a serial killer. Mark Riebe confessed to murdering 13 women. He later retracted those confessions. Detectives believe he is a serial killer, even though he's only been convicted of a single murder. Is this man one of America's most prolific killers?
Mark will try to control you. He'll try to manipulate you and control your interview. He's going to paint himself out to be the victim. He's going to make himself to be the most misunderstood person in the world.
When you tell a lie, and it's so convincing, and you have the ability to believe the lie you told, it makes for a very dangerous person.
You've been obsessively trying to nail this guy for a quarter of a century now. It's become a personal thing for you, hasn't it?
What becomes personal to me is these people. These people are important to me.
When I see Mark Riebe, what would you like me to say to him?
It's time. It's time to give it up, Mark. It's time to bring this all to an end.
Okay, after you.
It's time to give their family some sort of answers. And if there's any decency in you, this is the time to do it.
One night in August 1989, Mark Riebe and his brother Alex pulled into this convenience store. Behind the counter was Donna Callahan, a young mother pregnant with her second child.
When she looked up and saw him, he pulled the gun out and he grabbed her by the arm and come straight out the door. And she started crying. She asked, why was we doing it? And what had she done to us? Said she was pregnant and that she had a little girl. She didn't want to be hurt.
This confession led to the arrest of Mark Riebe. Alex had pinned the murder on his brother.
Mark, did you kill Donna Callahan?
After Donna Callahan went missing, her father launched a tireless 3-year campaign to find her. He petitioned the US president, and eventually a team of special agents were assigned to the case. One of them, Dennis Haley, has now been engaged in a battle of wills with Mark Riebe for almost 25 years.
So, Dennis, we are about an hour from where Donna Callahan was taken.
Yes, we are.
And it took 7 years to find her body, and eventually you managed to locate what was then the remains of her body just up here, right? Just in this...
Actually, it's right in this area right here, right. And about 20 feet, about right in there. And this used to be a clay road here. This wasn't a blacktop. And all the clay dirt ran off in here, which made the grave quite deep.
Of all the places to put a body, can you offer some rationale for why they would choose somewhere like this?
When I've talked to the profilers, they tend to believe that this is something every time he drives by he can think about. This was convenient. It was in sight of their home. Their home's just right up the road here. It's someplace they can drive by every day and know where that body's at. He can think about that night. He can think about the thrill of the kill. It's something they can check on almost daily.
He confessed to killing 13 women. Do you believe that the bodies of the other women might be somewhere in this area, buried away in these kind of trees?
Piers, that's what's always been so frustrating, because I do believe that. We have evidence at least 4 other dig sites that there was human decomposition there. And we know that Donna Callahan's body was never moved. I mean, it was here since 1989, so who was at these other sites? And Mark often talked about there being a graveyard out here with 4 to 5 bodies in it. So I truly believe that there's more bodies out here.
Sheriff's Office investigators say they're getting closer to charging someone in the murder of 18-year-old Jacqueline Brandt. Investigators say 46-year-old Mark Riebe is a person of interest in Brandt's murder. Riebe is currently serving a life sentence for the 1989 murder of Donna Callahan.
Beach police, along with FDLE agents, have Mark Riebe's confession. Riebe confessed to killing Pamela Ray and burying her on this land. Investigators, along with cadaver dogs,
There have been reports that Riebe is also responsible for many others, but investigators won't confirm that information.
If Mark Riebe finally tells the truth about these murders, it would make him one of America's worst serial killers.
How long have you been in prison?
21 years.
21 years. Because you took part in the brutal murder of a young woman called Donna Callahan.
Donna Callahan, yes, sir.
That's why you're here.
Yes, sir.
With Special Agent Haley,
Right.
you confessed to him over a period of time that you killed 13 women.
This is what Detective Haley has put out.
He believes that you killed 8.
No.
And I just want to go through why he thinks you killed them. And I want to give you the chance to respond to each of these cases and explain why he's wrong. The first lady is this woman here.
I don't even know who that lady is.
This is Bonnie Ryther. She was found buried after missing for a week in 1978. The reason that...
In what year?
1978.
1978, I was 17 years old.
Right. Special Agent Haley believes this was your first victim.
And absolutely not.
Lindsay Sams. She was a 35-year-old woman.
I don't even know who that is.
You don't dispute at the time you confessed to Special Agent Haley.
I did confess it.
You did confess to it. This is Andrea Durham. She was...
I don't know who that girl is. I did not confess to that one.
You'd never met Andrea Durham?
No, sir.
Well, Andrea Durham was 14.
I know, and I never confessed to that crime.
I'm just going to finish. She went missing in 1990, abducted from her home. Now, both of your stepchildren knew Andrea. They were friends.
They may have been friends, but I didn't know all my kids' friends. They didn't hang around she didn't hang around my house, I'll put it this way. They may have knew her, but she didn't come to my house. Never been to my house.
You told Special Agent Haley, I like to
Keep
drink...
going with Special Agent Haley.
Well, I'm just going to go through what they claim.
No, you're backing his story.
No, no,
this
I'm
is,
not. No.
Wait a second,
no,
wait
no,
a second.
no,
Don't
no.
stop this right
No,
here.
no, Mark, let me explain to you.
No. Wait.
Mark,
This was supposed to be...
I understand.
Nothing like this. I see where you've been and got all your information.
No, Mark,
Captain, we through here.
No, Mark. Let me explain. Mark, let me explain. Can I explain to you? Let me try again. I'm not judging you at all.
No, yes, you are, because the way you keep saying, why would he have
No, all I'm doing, you don't deny that you admitted at one stage...
You didn't let me finish, go on either. You could keep wanting to go back to
I
this.
understand. Let me give you the chance to respond to each of these cases.
There's no responding. I didn't do those cases. But you're not listening. You keep saying, but yes, you did.
Then I will show you more respect and I will listen properly to what you're saying.
Now, Let's go through them because I want to get to the point where I'll tell you how I shut this down.
Right.
And this office is still good today.
This is Donna Callahan.
I know who Donna Callahan is.
She's the woman that you're in prison for. She's the woman that you are accused with your brother of killing, brutally killing. She was pregnant. She was a young mother. But when you look at that picture, what do you feel?
Sir?
When you look at her picture, what do you feel?
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. My heart goes out to her daughter, her mom and dad, her family, and to her. Yeah. I just blurted it out. You know what? I was there that night.
But nobody, Mark, no innocent person is going to admit to being party to the murder of a pregnant mother.
There's been a lot of people who made mistakes and said they committed crimes they didn't and got out of prison.
Who actually killed Donna Callahan?
My brother killed Donna Callahan.
So you're driving along, and all of a sudden, Mark climbs over the back seat, gets on top of Donna, and starts to strangle her. What'd you hear? I heard her saying no and don't do this to me at first, and then I don't know how to describe the sound. It was like to me, it sounded like he'd cut her throat or something. I didn't know. It just sounded like a real fleshy sound. Because then when I heard that, I turned around and she had foam in her mouth. How long did that go on? It took him a while before she quit.
Mark Riebe went to trial and was convicted of this crime. He could have gotten the death penalty. With this morning's agreement, his life is spared. Riebe admitted that both he and Alex Wells kidnapped and killed Donna Callahan after robbing the convenience store where she worked in Gulf Breeze.
Riebe pleaded guilty to what he had done. I am pleased, and my daughter is pleased, Donna, who's going to rest in peace now.
Mark, if you could just do me one favor. Yes. You keep tapping your foot.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's making a bit of a noise. So if you could try and keep your feet, just be helpful for the recording. Okay.
Mark Riebe is serving life here in Florida's Blackwater River Correctional Facility. He was just months into his sentence when he started to make a series of extraordinary confessions.
Raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the statement you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay.
Over a period of 4 years, he told detectives gruesome details of how he killed 13 women.
Let me ask you this point blank, Mark. Did you abduct and kill Pamela Ray? So there's no doubt in your mind whatsoever,
Many of these women went missing not far from a sleepy railway town in northern Florida. Mark Riebe spent his teenage years here. This is the house he lived in with his mother, sisters, and brother. Donna Callahan's body was discovered in woodland, just 350 yards from here.
So we had an indirect personality assessment questionnaire completed by some family members on Mark Riebe. And one of the things we noted was he had no life goals or ambitions. And you could see him going from job to job to job. I mean, he was just an insignificant man who didn't really amount to much in his life. And I think he was very self-aware in terms of that.
If you're a serial killer, you like power and control, manipulation. They're plain looking, they're average looking people, and they're a charmer. I'm not saying that Mark has a magnetic personality, but I have seen him do the charmer thing with women.
Mark, do you like women? Do you like women?
Yes. I'm not a rapist, nothing like that. Yeah, I respect. I see nothing. They're my equal. I didn't ever, when I was into a relationship, I didn't want somebody subservient to me. I wanted somebody who was my partner, who lived life. I wanted somebody to enjoy life.
You've been married 4 times or 5?
Yes.
4 times. Why do you think the marriages never really worked?
Oh, well, that was easy. On the first 3, it was always me. As far as being faithful, that word didn't enter in the picture with me. It wasn't the ladies. All 3 of my first wives were very good ladies. Loved them to death. Afterwards, not while we was together, because I was too busy. I was partying. I was drinking. One big party.
And you cheated on all of your wives?
Always. I always had another lady on the side. That's the way it went. Then my 4th wife, that one paid me back for everything that I did.
In what way? How?
By cheating. And she's the one I stayed with the longest. I stayed with her for years.
Do you respect women?
Yes, I believe I do. I'm not going to put my hands on a lady physically, beat her. Didn't believe in that. So
you don't think you're a violent person?
I'm not a violent person. I don't. If I was confronted the wrong way, yes, I could be. I think that's anybody to defend herself. But as far as go looking to cause problems for somebody, no.
I've seen him get really angry one time, and because he'd been drinking. He was at a bar up in Decatur, Illinois. I'm up there interviewing him, and he got really, really angry at his wife. And he instantly went from 0 to, like, ready to kill somebody.
Something just completely trivial.
Yes, and it shocked me that he got so angry so quick. I thought he was going to attack her that night. And the only reason I don't think he did attack her that night is because he was in a public place.
In terms of motivation for Mark Riebe to be a serial killer, what do you think it is?
Power. Overpowering somebody. Control. I don't think it's sexually motivated.
Yet all his victims are young women between the ages of 13 and 35, 36. I mean, it's a very specific category.
And they're all small, petite, not more than 110 pounds at the most.
Any of them?
They're all small ladies. Even all his wives were that way.
Pamela Ray fitted Mark Riebe's victim profile perfectly. In the spring of 1999, 1 year into his life sentence, Riebe made an astonishing phone call. He spoke to Pamela Ray's father, who was still searching for his daughter almost 7 years after she'd gone missing. Riebe told him that he had killed her.
Front Beach Road wasn't anything like this on that early morning in August when Pamela Ray pulled up to this motel parking lot and tried to check in.
I went out there to begin with thinking, oh, we're gonna cover a news story about a lady who took a walk on the beach. She's going to return. By the end of the night, by 10 o'clock, we'll find out what really happened. And we didn't. And
That's when I realized, when I went out there, this isn't just a story about a missing person.
Pamela Ray had taken her 2 children on holiday. Leaving them asleep in her car, she went to check into a motel that once stood on this site.
This is Pamela Ray's vehicle as she had parked it 25 years ago. We know that a police officer with the Panama City Beach Police Department saw Pamela Ray, and she was talking to an unknown individual that was standing between the motel office and this pool fence. After that time, we have no visual of her ever again.
I slipped my knife out of my pocket, and popped it open real quick, and I grabbed her. She made, I wasn't what you call a real loud scream, but she made some noise. I told her to shut up, and she made another sound. I killed her right then and there.
Around 8:30 the following morning, the office motel calls in reference to the 2 children being in the car crying.
The daughter was very, very young and cheerful, and that's why I knew she didn't understand what had just taken place with her mom. And her son, you know, of course, he started crying, you know, please come home, Mama, bring my mom home.
Mark, try to think of something, tell us something that we can go back with that leaves no doubt in anyone's mind that this happened. The only thing I can think of is a single key that I picked up. Where did that key come from? Out of her hand.
Could he be a complete fantasist? Could he be making the whole thing up?
I don't think so. I struggled with that at one time. I thought, could this all be a bunch of crock of crap, as we say? No, there's just too many details about certain murders. He had information that only the killer would have had.
Give me some examples of the detail of killings where only the killer could have known that information.
Jackie Brandt, this girl right here, she went missing in April of 1986 out of Panama City Beach, Florida. When she went missing, nobody really even reported her missing. I get Riebe out of prison and I take him over to Panama City. He takes me to a bar over there called the Playground. That was a place she used to frequent. How would he have known that? From the Playground, he says that he met her there in the bar. They came out in the parking lot. They smoked a joint together, and he got mad at her, and he strangled her to death and killed her inside his car. And then he drove from there, and he wanted to get rid of her body. He then takes it up the road, and he was within 100 feet of where he dumped the body. How would he know that? And this wasn't even listed as a homicide. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that he killed her, and it's just sad that we don't have the evidence to support that.
Riebe confessed to killing Pamela Ray and burying her on this land. Investigators, along with cadaver dogs, will be spending at least a week combing through the thick brush and woods for Pam's remains or any evidence that could link Riebe to her.
Pamela Ray's disappearance has been continually investigated since 1992. Her children, who were 5 and 12 years old at the time, may never have the comfort of knowing what happened to their mother. Her sister Rhonda has helped look after them for much of their lives.
Pamela was your older sister?
She was my oldest sister.
5 years older than you?
5 years older. She loved me. We used to do everything together. Everything. With our children. Wherever she went, I was there.
Your father died believing that Mark Riebe had killed your sister.
He told me that Mark had confessed to him. And And at that time, you know, I thought very well, sure, he could have done it.
But if it's the case that he lied to your father about killing your sister, what kind of person would do that?
The worst of the worst. I don't even understand how you could do something like that to another person.
Your father sadly died a few months later, as it turned out.
He fell out of his bed, had a heart attack, and he was dead, just like that.
Do you think that the strain of what happened to Pamela contributed to his death?
Absolutely. I absolutely do.
You think he may have died of a broken heart?
Yeah, I know he did. It breaks my heart.
Now, Pamela Ray was 36 years old, and
I know the story.
She was brutal. Do you know what happened to her?
No, I do not know what happened to her.
Do you know she was abducted, murdered?
She was abducted.
You confessed to killing her?
I did. I said I did, yes.
But when you made the confession, a confession you've now retracted, you gave them no information along with the confession?
Well, yeah, I told them, I think I stabbed her. That's what I told them.
I think I stabbed her?
I think I said that. I'm not sure if that's what I told them. How? I'm not sure.
But you also, and this is unique in this case, you also spoke on the telephone to Pamela Ray's father. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember talking to that man.
What do you remember telling him?
I don't remember exactly what I told him. I told him I was responsible. Yeah, and that was it.
You told him you killed his daughter?
I think I did. And what really bothered me was I never got the chance to tell that man that I wasn't the one responsible.
He died soon
after. Yes,
afterwards.
he did. I have to live with this stuff.
Right. And
it's not easy.
You know, I don't want to be unfair on you, Mark, but at the same time, I do want to try and understand the mentality of a man who would tell a grieving father who's lost his daughter.
If I could tell these people, make them understand that it wasn't done out of malice towards you.
Mark, how much more malicious could you have been than to tell a grieving father
I wasn't
that you
thinking
killed
like
his
that
daughter?
at the time. But that wasn't, I put their feelings aside.
When you heard that he died, did you feel, what did you feel? Did you feel anything?
He died because of me. I don't feel like he died before. I don't know how the man died, but no.
But he died believing that you had told him.
And I just told you. I never. That's what a thing that really eats at me. I never got the chance to tell this man the truth.
Here's what I don't understand, Mark. I want you to explain to me. In 1998, you confessed to Special Agent Haley that you killed 13 women. Why?
He led me in, he gave me the information for these confessions because he wanted to make his career off of me.
So an investigating agent gives you all this information, and now he says you gave it to him.
I've been saying it for a while.
But why would you?
I was trying to get some help from my son at the time. I call it the deal with the devil. I found this place. I stopped the truck. I get her out. Her knees up under my left arm, right arm around her waist, and her head sort of laid back against my shoulder. Something like a romantic carry.
The confession you have just heard is a lie. That's what Mark Riebe is now telling me. He made a deal, he says, with Special Agent Dennis Haley. In return for Haley protecting his son from what he felt was a threatening situation, Riebe would admit to multiple murders. Haley broke this agreement according to Riebe, so in return, he withdrew all his confessions.
You see why I would be skeptical of
I'm
you?
asking you to believe me. I don't
Because
care
I'm looking
if
at
you
a man. I'm looking at a man that has admitted to me, telling a special agent and his colleague that you killed. That you killed. Let me finish, Mark.
Or anybody believes.
Let me finish. It's not about what I believe.
I had to maintain that. I could not come out of that character.
But you were
If I
prepared.
did,
You were
I would
prepared to
never-
admit you were one of the worst killers, killing all these women in the most heinous way. You were prepared to admit that, just to try and help your son.
See what they did with me. They could have put me on death row at the time. I told him if that's what they wanted to do, I would go that route. I would maintain that thing until the end.
What doesn't stack up to me in your position is if you admit you confess to all these murders to Special Agent Haley, why he would then feel the need to invent
Because
all this
he's put it
detail
out there
that
I did this.
he says you gave him.
He wanted to make his career. He wanted his
He
limelight.
doesn't need to make a career out of you. He's just a special agent investigating crime all day, every day.
He told me what I had to do.
If Mark Riebe is claiming that he was confessing to a number of crimes in order to protect his son, my advice would be to view it the way his family members would view it, in that he claims to be the protector, father, very engaged with his children, when in fact, their perception of him is he has nothing to do with them. He is not engaged with them. He's an absentee father, and didn't really care about them. And that's their words, not ours.
I'm struggling to get much in the way of truth from Mark Riebe. But at least the victims' families can now judge for themselves. For Dennis Haley, trying to bring them closure has been his life's work.
We have a subject confessing to several abductions and murders. It's hard to judge because at times I sit there and I'll be honest with you, I believe him, but then nothing checks out.
Dennis has worked on a lot of these death cases for 20 years, if not more. He thinks, dreams, sleeps, eats these cases because he cares a lot about the victim and their families. They become so important to him that makes him even more so wanting to solve the case, and so he never gives up.
Riebe insists he was given all the details in his confessions by Dennis Haley. But in the case of Rhonda Taylor, a 23-year-old brutally stabbed to death in 1990, this could not have been possible. Riebe talks about an African-American man being present in the car when he killed Rhonda. This detail could not have been known by detectives until years later, when DNA testing became widely used and evidence from the car was examined.
Mark describes killing Rhonda with two black guys there. We have blood in Rhonda's car that comes back to a black male. I mean, how would he have known that? He had information that only the killer would have had.
This is Rhonda Taylor. She was found naked and stabbed to death at the back of a car.
That's one of the ones, Dennis.
You told the police at the time that you believed that she had had sex with an African-American man, and DNA was found which confirmed she had had sex with an African-American man.
I was never a rapist. I'm not a rapist.
No, not you, that somebody else, another man, an African-American, had sex with her that night.
No, sir.
You never told police that?
No, sir.
Why would you confess to killing Rhonda Taylor if you didn't kill her?
I told you why I confessed. I felt I had to, this was one of the cases he led me to.
You also confessed to your sister that you killed her.
Who?
You also told your sister.
I told my, when it started, and I had to go to roll. I couldn't tell one thing and then be telling somebody else something.
Why would you tell your own sister that you had killed a young woman?
Because they come to the prison and asked me about it. Dennis had me, I was already doing it. Trying to get my son's thing. I had to do it. I felt like I had to tell him.
So you had to maintain the lie?
I maintained the lie, basically. That's
even to your own family?
To anybody, even my kids. You don't think that hurt? That killed me. But
you told your children that
my children were sitting there in the BP when it was said.
When you admitted killing these women?
Yes. My mom and my sister was talking about it. They always talking about it.
So your mother and your sister and your children all heard you confess to killing 13 women?
Well, they would not all just confession, but they would ask me, you know, they didn't ask me details like that. They said, did you say you did that? Yeah.
I mean, how did your family react to hearing you say that you were a serial killer?
It wasn't good. Yeah. I really don't have a lot of contact with any of them.
But here's what I would say to you, Mark. You weren't just hurting your family when you made these confessions. You were obviously causing
enormous... it was hard for... Excuse me.
Well, you were causing enormous hurt to the families of women like Rhonda Taylor.
Yes, I thought about them families, but I put my son before them families.
What do you say to the family of Rhonda Taylor, who...
Sir?
What would you say to the family of Rhonda Taylor?
I'm sorry that I made those confessions. Yeah.
My last wife, ex-wife, she made a comment about what I had done prior to these other people. She brought up precisely Rhonda Taylor, for one. And she asked me how could I do something like that, you know. I told her it's nothing I was proud of. I couldn't, it's hard to live with. It tears you out a little bit every day. But like I said, I'm not asking for no pity from nobody. What I did, I'm not proud of what I did. I did it. I didn't intend to do it, but I did do it.
This potential serial killer, Mark Riebe, by not telling the truth, has really caused so much more hurt to so many people like yourself by just not telling the truth. That, you know, the police believe he's guilty. Right. He just refuses to come clean about exactly what he did. What do you think of that refusal, to be honest?
To me, if you never admit it, never regret it, never sorry, never ask forgiveness, then you're really worse off than we are.
This is the scene of the only murder Mark Riebe has been convicted of. Almost 30 years ago, Donna Callahan was working here. She was a young mother expecting her second child.
What is so horrifying to me about all this is the utterly random nature of these killings. This woman, Donna Callahan, was minding her own business, just working hard, late at night. She could have been anybody.
They're random victims, but they're also victims of convenience. They try to make it that he was coming back to rob the store, but no, he came back just to get her. They never got in the cash register, they never took any money, they never took one thing out of the store but her.
Has Mark Riebe ever shown a shred of remorse for anything?
Not to me, he hasn't. To me, he's never shown. He claims he feels bad about it, but you don't see it in him. You don't really see him. You don't see the emotions. You know, he'll say that, but there's no emotions there.
you've been working on this serial killer for 25 years. Are you any nearer to really understanding him than you were at the start?
In one way, I don't want to understand him. I don't want to be that. No, I don't believe I ever will understand why somebody wants to kill someone.
Special Agent Haley's position about this is that in the 8 cases that I went through in detail...
keep going with Special Agent Haley. Now,
well,
I've done explain to you...
You mentioned him too, so...
No.
It's not just me mentioning him.
You keep bringing up
You keep talking about him as well. Here's what I want to say to you. He believes in the 8 cases...
I wouldn't care what Dennis Haley believes. He don't believe it. He knows I didn't do it.
I understand that. I understand your position, but you keep mentioning him too, and I'm just saying, he believes that of the 13 confessions that you made, which would have made you one of the worst serial killers in the history of the United States of America, you were placing yourself up with Ted Bundy and the others,
I didn't care where I was placing myself at that time. My main objective and main goal was my son.
You see, Mark, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I don't care.
I think you are a serial killer.
You're wrong.
I think you did kill these women.
No, sir.
I think these families of these women, they need...
This is over.
They need...
That's it.
Justice.
Captain, we're done.
Why can't you answer these questions?
I answered your question.
Huh?
You want to get this off?
Why are you running away? Why are you running away?
I answered your question.
Why don't you sit here like a man and answer these questions?
There was something about this to begin with.
Why don't you sit here like a
We're
man?
not sitting here, nothing.
I know I'm not a 110-pound woman that you can kill.
Captain, I'm done.
Huh? You did kill them, didn't you? You killed them all.
We may never know whether Mark Riebe did kill the women Special Agent Haley and others suspect him of. For the victims' families, the not knowing is like an extra dagger in their hearts. And in the end, their loved ones may have died for no other reason than simply the thrill of the kill.
The case is now closed. In court this morning, Mark Riebe pleaded guilty to the murder of Donna Callahan.
Donna Callahan's daughter, Angie, regularly visits her mother. She was 2 at the time of the murder. She has no memories of her.
Why me? Why my mother? Why that night? Why did it have to happen? What did my mother do so wrong to deserve something so cruel?
They took everything from us. When we go to visit Donna, we go to a gravesite. They sit in prison, get letters, phone calls. They get visits if say be. Not us. Not us. We don't get phone calls. We don't get letters. We go to a gravesite and talk to a headstone.
That I wish she was here to see me grow as a person and to see things that I have accomplished.
This is the videotape statement of Lorenzo
J. Gilyard at White Male 524 of 50 regarding the following homicides. Number 1, Stacy Swafford. Next is the homicide of Gwendolyn Kazine. The next is Margaret Miller. Next is Catherine Berry. Next is Naomi Kelly. Next is Deborah Blevins. Next is Ann Barnes. Next is Kelly Ford. Next is Angela Mayhew. Next is Sheila Ingold.
Lorenzo, Piers Morgan, good to see you. Come over here. How are you doing today?
This took me on by surprise.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen?
I don't know.
We're just having, it's basically just an interview. And here's what I would say to you is, this is your chance just to have your say.
Okay.
Okay? No one's heard from you for a long time.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
How long have you been in there?
Where?
In here?
In prison?
Yeah. 11 years?
4,289 days.
Wow, you remember them all. That might be my first question for you.
This man is one of America's most notorious serial killers, known as the Kansas City Strangler. Lorenzo Gilyard was charged with murdering 13 women. He's serving 6 life sentences. He says he's an innocent man. He has never spoken publicly before. What will Gilyard say to the families of the victims who've been denied answers for decades?
She would never hurt anybody. And for somebody to do what they did to her.
If you had the chance to sit opposite him, what would you say to him?
We're not stupid. We know what you did. You're the only person walking the face of this earth that did that. If he had a soul, he would at least look me in the eye and tell me he was sorry.
I worked lots of homicide cases, but I mean, as far as the amount of victims that he had, the length of time that this went on, no, I can't think of anybody more despicable than Gilyard.
What Lorenzo did was just stone evil stuff. Lorenzo, what the hell were you thinking? What drove you to do this? Where'd this come from? How'd you do that? How'd you live those 2 lives?
A few hours before this police interview, Lorenzo Gilyard was having supper in a diner. He hadn't killed anyone in over 10 years and thought he'd got away with murder. Catherine Barry was one of his victims.
Next is a photograph of Catherine Barry, discovered 3/14 of 86 at 3001 Central. Those are your initials on the bottom?
Yes.
Do you know Catherine Barry?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Have you ever seen her?
Not that I know. My knowledge, I would have remembered, no.
Have you ever had physical contact with her?
Not to my knowledge.
In March 1986, the naked body of Catherine Barry, a 34-year-old mother of 3, had been found half hidden under a sheet of wood. There was a black stocking knotted tight around her neck.
This is where Catherine Barry's body was found. What was unusual to you about this scene?
The unusual part of it is she's partially covered. I mean, she's partially covered with plywood and leaves. The thing is that she's not out in the open like some of the others were.
And some of the other bodies were deliberately left in a purposeful pose.
Yeah, most of them were left where they would be found, and most of it, I mean, to me or to probably anybody else that would walk up and find that, it'd be shocking.
12 of the 13 that he's believed to have killed were prostitutes who may well have had sex with him voluntarily before he killed them. But certainly in Catherine Barry's case, she was not a prostitute. So what do you think he did to Catherine Barry?
You could assume that she didn't have sex willingly with him.
She was raped and then murdered?
Yes, that'd be my assumption. What kind of monster would do that?
How do you pronounce your surname?
Gilyard.
Gilyard?
Yeah.
Gilyard, yeah. Lorenzo Gilyard was earning a good salary, working as a supervisor at a waste management company. He was married and living a quiet life. No one suspected he was capable of killing anyone. Let me just ask you, first of all, what has life been like for you inside prison?
It's different. You know, I'm used to being able to travel, do whatever I wanted to. And here, somebody else controls it, you know.
In the 15 years or so leading up to your arrest, your life seemed to be pretty perfect. You were very happily married to Jackie. You were in a job that you loved and you were successful. You'd become a supervisor. You had very nice cars that you took great pride in. You went on very nice holidays. Life seemed pretty good, Lorenzo, in that period for you.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, girl. I wish you hadn't brought up her.
Jackie?
Yeah.
How do you feel about her now?
Nothing. I just missed. Nothing. I'm not angry with her. She hasn't done anything. She was nothing but a great wife.
Because you had a good marriage, right?
Yeah. To me, it was. I assume to her it was also.
Here you were, a man who had found true love with a woman that he really adored. You had this very rare Mercedes worth over $100,000. You bought your wife a Mercedes.
Yeah, but see, we had 5 of them. We traded up. Not only did I have a nice car, I had 2 or 3 platinum MasterCards, 2 or 3 Visas, platinum Visas. I had a platinum Discover. I had a gold Neiman Marcus.
You had a Rolex watch, right?
I traded in I had a Piaget at first. She bought me a Piaget at first, and I traded it in and got a Rolex.
Because one of the inexplicable things about all this is why somebody who was having such a wonderful life, apparently, would want to commit offenses like this.
I can't imagine. I didn't, you know.
Do you think you're a violent person?
I get angry just like everybody else. It's, you know, about stuff that I find not true about.
What really makes you angry?
Lying.
So, Carl, we're now turning into Troost Avenue, and this, at the time of these killings, was where many local prostitutes would work. Is that right?
Right, that's true. They would walk back and forth down Troost Avenue. Gilyard was, without a doubt, very cunning. He was very cunning. You know, he's the kind of guy that you would not expect, like a lot of serial killers. He was very meticulous in what he did. He was careful. He didn't have a lot of friends. He didn't associate with a lot of people. So, you know, nobody really knew much about him to suspect him of anything.
Lorenzo Gilyard was living a double life. At work, he was popular and respected.
Lorenzo was a good guy. He was always eager to help or happy to help, and he never complained. He just did his job and did it with a smile. Lorenzo was the kind of guy you wanted out in the neighborhoods. You wanted interacting with customers. I liked working with him. You just took him as you found him. Good stand-up guy.
Gilyard had made it out of a tough neighborhood and was living here in a comfortable suburb of Kansas City.
This was the house that we lived in at the time, and that was the house that Lorenzo Gilyard and his wife lived in.
He's someone I knew from day one I would never trust.
One of the first days that we had moved in, we were bringing a TV home, and to get the TV in, I was going to back the truck into the driveway. And he said, I want you to come inside and look at something. I want to show you something. He came around from the corner from a bedroom, evidently, and had 38 pistols in each hand. And he told me, you see these? This is mine, and this is my wife's. And if anybody comes in my yard, I'll shoot them. That's not normal behavior. That's not normal.
Normal behavior it wasn't. 3 years later, he was arrested, and they found out who their neighbor really was.
Gilyard was given 6 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The 53-year-old sanitation worker will die in prison.
How do you feel, Lorenzo, about the fact that you are sitting here as a convicted man, as one of America's worst serial killers? How does that make you feel?
I hate it. I truly hate it. And I wish you wouldn't use that term again while we in a conversation.
The phrase serial killer?
Yeah, and America's worst.
Right.
Because then I'll get up, I will leave.
Right.
Because I hate that.
Why do you take exception to that?
Because that's wrong. No, that's not.
What does it mean to you, that kind of phrase? Why do you take such exception to it?
That's horrible. That's the best word I can term.
You think serial killers are horrible people and you don't want to be associated with them?
No, And that term, yes, I don't want to be.
You've been given a tag which you hate, and you don't want me to repeat it because you hate it so much. But it's a tag that you know is now associated with your name. If you put your name into the internet, up comes Lorenzo Gilyard and serial killer. You know that.
Right.
It's not me. I'm not coming up with it myself.
Right.
And yet you find that tag really offensive because you believe you're an innocent man.
No, I don't believe it. I know I am. Okay.
When Catherine Barry, the mother of 3, got into Lorenzo Gilyard's car, she was mentally unwell and vulnerable. Leaving her family at home, she would walk the streets of Kansas City, trying to educate people about God. Her daughter Dawn was 16 at the time of the murder.
Dawn, you discover that this was a serial killer who killed your mother. Did that make it worse for you to know that she was just part of this monster's indiscriminate spree?
Yeah, it made it really hard to swallow to think he'd gotten away with it and had done it that many times. Yeah, it made me angry, made me really angry. She would have been a very easy target for him. How you could do that to such a kind and sweet soul, I'll never understand. A person with a heart couldn't do what he did.
Gilyard has denied even meeting Dawn's mother, let alone strangling her to death. How will he react when I confront him with the faces of the women who were killed?
She too was found, shoeless like all the victims, and placed in a sexually suggestive pose. Her body contained the semen of the defendant and no one else.
The crime started back in 1977 and spanned 3 decades.
Women strangled between 1977 and 1993.
Lorenzo Gilyard is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the first degree for the deaths of Catherine Berry,
For the murders of Catherine Berry,
Naomi Kelly, Ann Barnes, Kelly Ford,
and
Sheila Ingold, and Carmeline Hibbs.
First photograph I'm showing you is Sheila Ingold. Do you know Miss Ingold?
Not to my knowledge, no, I don't.
And this is a photograph of Stacy Swafford.
I didn't know her.
Have you ever had physical contact
Not
with
to
Miss
my
Swafford?
knowledge, no.
Kelly Ford, have you ever seen Miss Ford?
Not to my knowledge.
Photograph of Connie Luther.
Not to my knowledge, no, I don't know her neither.
You don't know her. Have you ever had physical contact with her?
Not to my knowledge.
Carmeline Hibbs. Do you know Miss Hibbs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Let me take you to the moment when you were arrested. You remember that?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Tell me what happened in your own words.
These two black guys came in and asked, you know, what's my name was Lorenzo. I said, yeah. Said, well, we'd like to talk to you downtown. I said, who are you? And he told me they was detectives.
Did they tell you what they wanted to talk to you
No,
about?
he just said he wanted to talk to me.
Did you have any idea?
I didn't know what they was talking about, but, you know.
So you were shocked?
Yeah, I was shocked. So when I get downtown, they got to they asked me about they said, do you know these people here? Show me one picture at a time. I said, no, I don't, not to my knowledge. I don't.
They showed you photographs of 13 women.
No, it wasn't no 13. It was like 5 or 6.
Right.
Yeah.
And they asked if you'd ever met them.
Yeah, and I said, no, not to my knowledge, you know. And these
I think they asked you, I think I'm right in saying they asked you 2 questions about each woman. They said, have you ever met this person and have you ever had sex with them?
Yeah.
And you said no, no, no to all of them.
No, I said no, not to my knowledge. Yeah, right.
Yeah, not to your knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And none of these women look familiar to you?
No, because these was little bitty black and white pictures, so, you know, I couldn't.
And did they then tell you why they wanted to talk to you?
No, So when we got to talking then, I said, man, what are we talking about?
I just want to look at some pictures here. These are some of the people. They showed you the pictures, the same thing. These are just a few of the images, Lorenzo.
Yeah, see, they wasn't like that, though.
See, this picture here is Sheila Ingold. Now,
that's the only person that actually...
You did know her?
No, I didn't know her, but...
She was a friend of the woman you were seeing at the time?
Right.
You'd never met her?
Never met her. Never seen her.
Do you recognize her now?
No. Never seen her before in my life.
This was Catherine Barry. This was Catherine Barry. Have you ever seen her?
I've never seen her.
Doesn't ring any bells at all?
No, she never rings a bell, never rung a bell.
This was Gwendolyn Kazin. She was just 15. It's obviously not a good image of her, but she was the youngest of these victims, 15-year-old girl.
I've never seen her, never knew her.
What do you feel, Lorenzo, about what happened to all these women? Because they were all taken off the streets. They were all strangled. And each strangulation apparently took several minutes. I mean, it's a gruesome way to die.
Right, I know.
What do you feel about what happened to them?
I feel bad, but then nothing I could do about it.
One of the things that just stood out to me was that when we went to his apartment to do a search, was how extremely neat he was. I'd never really seen a man be quite that neat.
Incredibly tidy, clinical, precise. Everything was organized. It was all very clean.
Yes. If you went to look in a drawer, he could not only tell you what was in the drawer, in what order it was in. And I found that very unusual for a man.
Does that tell you that he was a man who liked to be completely in control?
Yes, that's exactly what that indicates.
And when you look at the precision with which he carried out these murders and the way he left these poor women, again, it was all very orderly. It was very carefully executed.
Yes.
Her body was found at 45th and Garfield. Almost 3 years later, 15-year-old Gwendolyn Kazine was found dead at 1312 Paseo, a wire still wrapped around her neck. Next was Margaret Miller, found
In the 1970s and 80s, Lorenzo Gilyard was living within a 2-mile radius of where many of the bodies were found. The last woman he was accused of killing was Connie Luther. Her body was found here, with a shoestring tied around her neck. You were working these streets for 7 or 8 years when we now know Lorenzo Gilyard was picking women off the very streets you were on.
I feel extremely fortunate that I survived, but for girls and women who this is how they made their livelihood, this is how they survived, what were we to do? We had to take our chances.
You didn't know who this killer was, what he looked like, how old he was, anything.
I know for myself, you know, I would get in a car after I tried to look for obvious things, and then I would just start praying. I mean, I was in a constant prayer, you know, and I know that's, some people don't understand that, but, you know, when you're hungry or when you have bills to pay and this is all that you know and this is all that you've known since you were a child, you know, you do what you do, and it was scary.
You know that these girls are getting taken by what they think is a client, and they're being taken to horrific deaths.
Yes. Yeah, so that's what's going through your mind, you know, the whole time that you're in the car. When you're looking for your friend and where is she, and no one's seen her, and then now a body's shown up and you're waiting for the name, and you find out that someone you knew was murdered. I mean, it was a terrifying time for everybody.
Your sister ended up, sadly, as a prostitute, didn't she? What impact did that have on you?
I don't know how to answer that. It didn't have no impact one way or another.
How did you feel about her being a prostitute? Did you feel sad about that?
Yeah, because I tried to give, I wanted her to wanted more for her than that.
You lived and worked in an area where there were lots of women working the streets at night, lots of prostitutes. What is your view of prostitution?
Frankly, I didn't have one view one way or another. You know, if that's how they work to make their money, I guess, you know.
You didn't find it a repellent profession?
I don't know, man. I don't know how to answer that. When you say repellent, what do you mean? I found it disgusting and
Yeah.
I hated it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
Have you ever had sex with a prostitute?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
You wouldn't forget, would you?
If you was back then, man, clubs was club. When we went clubbing, no matter, you know, women just, they might have been working the streets at night, but they'd come to clubs. You know, I don't know.
But have you ever paid a woman for sex?
No, I haven't.
Never?
Never.
Would you ever?
If she looked good enough, probably I would. I don't know. I ain't gonna I would never put myself in that position. No, I don't know, man. Basically, I was always taught, you pay a woman for sex all the time. If you buy her a drink, a dinner, take her out and do anything, that's paying for it.
Do you think all women are prostitutes, basically?
No, I didn't say that.
That's what you're implying.
And I'm gonna end our conversation now because you're taking things out. No, because you're taking things out of context.
Lorenzo,
I didn't apply that.
I don't think I am taking things out of context. I'm trying to work out what you're telling me. You just said, when I said to you, you know, what do you feel about paying women for sex? You said, well, you pay women for sex all the time when you buy them dinners.
And then you don't call them prostitutes. You call them girlfriends.
But my question was about prostitutes. So obviously, when you answer the way you did, I don't think it's irrational of me to then think you look at all women in that way.
No, I don't.
So if you want to clarify that, please clarify it.
No, I don't look at them.
I'm not trying to be unnecessarily hostile.
Yeah.
I'm just reacting to what you're telling me. So explain what you meant.
Most men, when you go, you know, when you take a lady out, what do you want? Have sex, right? So you buy her dinner, buy her or take her to a movie. In hopes of what? Having sex with her later on.
I don't think it always has to lead to sex, does it? I mean,
Man, either if they don't, you're gay.
if it doesn't lead to sex, you're gay.
Yeah. That's what, man, you trying to, that's what's, you're trying to pretend like that's not never in your repertoire. You know, you ain't never seen a beautiful woman or a pretty woman and say, well, you know, buy her lunch and hope a few drinks and hope we go to a hotel or go someplace.
No, but I wouldn't assume that if I didn't have sex with a woman after a date in my life, that somehow that meant I was gay, that it was an automatic thing. It would
No,
always,
I ain't saying it was automatic.
it would always
thing.
be entirely of the choice of the woman.
Right,
and, And by the way, there are many, many dates that happen every minute of the day that there's no
okay.
consequence of sex.
The first time out. But eventually, that's what's going to lead up to.
Right.
You're right.
You're very angry. Understandably, if, as you say, you're an innocent man, you're very angry. What do you hope?
I'm sorry if I put, you know, it's just, I'm getting tired, you know, of, I didn't kill these people. Now, I'm 68 years old. I don't have, when you trying to put words in my mouth or twist it to, you know,
I honestly don't want to put any words in your mouth.
If I'd have had sex with him, I'd have paid him.
Gilyard says he's never had sex with any of the women he's convicted of killing. So how will he explain that the semen found on their bodies was his? Lorenzo Gilyard is telling me he's never even met the women he's convicted of killing. Any suggestion that he has gets an angry response.
When you were interviewed by the police originally, you said you'd never met any of these women.
I hadn't, not to my knowledge, I didn't.
And to your knowledge, you'd never had sex with them.
Right.
Just to clarify, you never told your lawyer you had sex with any of these women?
No, I never did.
He just made that up?
I guess he did. I never told him that. If you're going to keep saying that, then I'm going to get up and leave.
No,
because I keep telling you, I didn't tell him that.
Lorenzo.
That's beginning to piss me off. I didn't tell him that. I don't have to lie.
Lorenzo, I have no dog in this fight.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work out
Well,
what
you
happened.
keep saying over and I keep telling you over and over. I didn't tell him that.
Right.
Gilyard will spend the rest of his life in prison, but he nearly got away with murder. For years, police were finding the bodies of women, but they had no suspects and no idea there was a serial killer on the loose. Then, one November morning in 1987, they found the semi-naked body of Sheila Ingold in an abandoned van. This murder would eventually lead to the capture of Lorenzo Gilyard, almost 30 years after he's believed to have first killed.
This is where Sheila Ingold was found, right there. Right there. The vans were parked out here in this lot.
The Kansas City Strangler killed 4 women in 1987, the busiest year. Among them, Sheila Ingold's body was discovered in an abandoned van on Troost.
Lorenzo Gilyard had a personal connection to Sheila Ingold. He was dating her friend. She was the 10th woman he's accused of killing, but it was the first time the police would link him directly to a murder.
Sheila Ingold was found here in a van. Gilyard was right there in that tan building over there, and it used to be a fish market. And he was there getting fish the day the body was found.
So that was the first time that you were able to place him in the immediate proximity to one of the dead women?
Yes. Gilyard admits to being at the fish market while the police were on the crime scene for Sheila Ingold. One of the main things that led us to believe that Gilyard was involved was Charles Berry told me that there was an individual that wanted to look at the van.
Who's Charles Berry?
Charles Berry was the individual that had the car shop here that owned the vans.
So the man who had the store here said that a man named Lorenzo came and inquired about that van.
Yes. And he didn't want to see any of the rest of the vans. He wanted to see that particular one, even though he was told that that particular van was just one they used for parts.
So you now have him opposite where her body was found, and you have him inquiring about trying to get that van.
Yes.
And you put all that together, and what have you got?
A killer.
Gilyard was questioned. Blood and hair samples were taken, but there was not enough evidence to charge him. What was curious about her death was that you were just opposite where her body was found, and also you'd made inquiries about buying the truck.
No, I didn't know nothing about no truck.
You never made any inquiries about it?
No,
I just want to go through the things that happened to you in your earlier life, and I want you to tell me, just honestly, what your reaction to it is.
Yeah.
Between 1969 and 1974, you were a suspect in 5 separate rape cases, but you were never convicted.
Yeah.
What do you remember about those cases?
One of them was a girlfriend. And that's in 1969, that's how it started. So then after that, whenever in the neighborhoods where I lived in the hood, whenever rapes came up, I guess they come to arrest, see who lived in the neighborhood.
In 1975, you were charged with raping a friend's sister near the Missouri River. You were charged with beating and raping her. You told police she was lying. Ultimately, you pled guilty to molesting the girl, and you got a 9-month sentence in Jackson County Jail. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that one.
What happened there?
I don't know. She's passed away, and her sister is passed away. That's who I was living with, was her sister. And I don't want to discuss that, what happened with that.
In 1980, you assaulted and threatened to shoot your wife, who then divorced you. The next month, you assaulted your ex-wife twice. You beat and pistol whipped her. Is this true?
No, she lied.
Was it an abusive relationship? Did you hit her?
No.
You never hit her?
Oh, well, she hit me, yes. I guess I ain't gonna lie, I did. Yeah.
You did hit her?
Yeah.
The reason that they arrested you and then charged you, and indeed why you got convicted, was that they found your DNA on all of these victims' bodies.
So they say.
Right. But as you know, that's why you got convicted.
Right.
And the odds on this being anybody but you, according to a forensic expert in court, is 1 in 18 quadrillion. That's 1 in 18 million billion chance that it could be somebody else other than you. I mean, these are extraordinary statistics.
In this particular case, it was shocking that all 13 of those cases existed, but up until 2004, there had been no resolution to them. So many victims, so many cases. It's 13 people. That was the biggest we'd ever seen in Kansas City's history.
12 of the bodies had semen on them, but detectives had no way of knowing they were all from the same man. The murders went unsolved. But then in 2003, over 10 years since Gilyard had last killed, a grant from the federal government enabled DNA analysis of those semen samples.
We had Lorenzo Gilyard's a blood standard from him that was actually on file in our freezer. And it had actually been taken in conjunction with the Sheila Ingold case. We pulled the standard and decided to run it to see if we could make an association or cross him off as a potential suspect. There was a moment, oh my God, it was the same profile. It was a very exciting resolution.
so that there was finally an answer to all 12 of these cases that were now connected to one person.
Gilyard has always said the Kansas City police framed him. He insists the DNA samples were tampered with, degraded too much for accurate testing, or lost. I'm trying to work out the truth here, because obviously you're facing at the moment the rest of your life in this prison for crimes that you say you didn't commit.
I did not.
Why would the police frame you, do you think?
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. At that time, my assumption was everybody was trying to make a name.
Right, but what makes no sense to me, Lorenzo, is that they arrested you years and years later. They were just told by the DNA laboratory guys, this is the DNA we found on the bodies. And the one match they found on every one of those bodies' DNA was your DNA, nobody else's. No one else they'd interviewed. And I don't understand why so much later down the line they would have any vested interest in
How did they
framing
have
you.
my DNA to match it to anything?
Well, they had it from when you were tested.
Tested when?
Back in the... Well, you know when you were tested, right?
I've never been tested.
For DNA.
They've never had no...
But they had your blood and they had your...
No, it was destroyed in 1998.
But during the process of them interviewing you and arresting you over Sheila Ingalls' death, they did take samples off you. They took blood samples, they took hair, and they took saliva, right?
No, they didn't take no saliva. They just took that back.
What did you give them?
Blood and hair.
Right. That was enough for them later, when DNA testing came in, to get your DNA from that, from those samples. But your argument is those samples were destroyed.
Those samples was destroyed.
But when they arrested you again, years and years later, in connection with all these offences, they did more tests on you, didn't they?
No, they didn't get no DNA from me then.
They didn't?
No.
They didn't take any blood tests?
No.
No more samples?
No, they did not.
The police arrested you for 13 murders.
12, okay.
Well, 12, but it was 13 in court.
Fine.
And they never took any samples off you?
No, never did.
So you told me that Mr. Gilyard alleges his sample was never taken again in 2004. And we have a sample in 2004 that was taken from him that we used for DNA analysis. So I know that can't be true, essentially. And not only did we have his DNA on our victims, but we also had victims' DNA on items taken from Mr. Gilyard. In 2004, they took a brand new DNA standard from Mr. Gilyard, and once we completed analysis on that, we went back and checked to make sure that standard matched all 13 cases. It matched the 1987 blood standard that we had from Mr. Gilyard. So everything across the board was consistent. It was all the same person.
You have very good memory, incredibly precise memory about everything. You can remember specific dates going back decades.
Yes.
And yet you occasionally have erupted with anger and threatened to leave. And it suddenly fires up out of nowhere.
I've shared a lot with y'all, and I've gotten nothing in return from...
What do you want in return from me?
Nothing, nothing. I just give them, I felt offended, I guess.
What were you offended by?
The terms that you use and some of the questions.
What would you say to all the families of these women who were
I'm sorry
killed?
what happened to them. That's all I can say. I didn't do it, but I'm sorry.
Margaret Miller was discovered 5/9 of 82, 37th at Garfield. Do you know, or did you know Miss Miller?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Have you ever had physical contact with Miss Miller?
Not to my knowledge.
Have you ever seen Miss Miller?
Nope, not to my knowledge.
Carmeline Hibbs, do you know Miss Hibbs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Have you ever seen Miss Hibbs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Have you ever had any physical contact with her?
Not to my knowledge, no. Nope. Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I can't. Nope. I didn't know her. No, not to my knowledge.
Have you ever seen her?
Not that I know, not to my knowledge.
Does it matter to you whether I believe you or not?
No, not really. I don't know why it would.
What do you hope?
After you walk out of this room, you know.
You see, I think you're a plausible talker. You have an answer for everything. But I found some of what you've said about women a little bit disturbing. I think other people will too. You've admitted to potentially being a violent man. We know you have a record of convictions for sexual assault and for violence.
I thought you said.
Well, you have criminal convictions for assault and for violence, right? You haven't contested that. When you put it all together, and you have the police saying they're categorically, in their words to me, there is not a 1 in 100 million chance it was anybody but Lorenzo Gilyard. The DNA from him directly matched every one of these women. It's very hard to look at you, Lorenzo, and see an innocent man.
Okay. Then that's it. So are we through then? If you don't, yeah, that's good.
Has any part of you, and I'll be straight with you, you've always denied all this, despite the overwhelming evidence?
Overwhelming evidence. DNA.
DNA is pretty overwhelming.
Okay. According to the police, okay.
According to anyone that studies the DNA results.
And who else did it? But the Kansas City Police Department.
Well, let me ask you this then. If it wasn't you, who else was it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Have you got any theories?
No. I don't know. I don't know, man. I truly don't know.
The problem I have, Lorenzo, is that you go from being this charming, well-spoken, polite man to somebody very different very quickly.
And so
you go to somebody that I could imagine, if he was angry and he was pushed enough, could be very dangerous.
Okay, so what these women made me angry or pushed enough to do to make me hurt them?
You tell me.
I'm asking you. They couldn't have done nothing. They couldn't have done nothing.
Did they disrespect you?
I don't know how they could have disrespected me. I didn't know them.
Yet your DNA was found all over their bodies.
Okay.
But you know that.
All right. All over their bodies, come on. I know that wasn't right. It was in their sex area with Sheila Ingle. It was a spot on her leg.
How did they get there?
I don't know.
You've never met her, you said.
I never met her. I don't know. I just truly don't know.
And what was your defense in court?
I truly don't know. I was just there.
You have no idea what your defense was?
No. I read it.
You were charged with killing 13 women by strangulation, and you have no idea what your defense was. Do you think I'm an idiot, Lorenzo? Do I look an idiot to you?
Can I go back? Have a good day, y'all. Thank you. All right. Here, this is y'all.
Tonight, Lorenzo Gilyard will go back to his cell, as he does every night, and reflect perhaps on how he could have grown old with his wife Jackie, the woman he told me he loved.
Instead, he will die in prison, a serial killer whose past eventually caught up with him.
When you don't have your mom, there's a part of you that just, that missing piece that you have growing up, you never get over it.
You just get the feeling he's managed to avoid having to deal with any of this in terms of accountability.
Yeah, nobody's, I mean, since the trial, I'm sure nobody's been in his face to tell him.
He's done no
you're full of
interviews,
it.
no, nothing.
Yeah.
He's not had anybody do it to.
Good.
And it unnerved him.
As a human being, we all have that innate compassion. He doesn't have it.
Having spent time with him, I actually think being incarcerated for the rest of his life, for someone like him, might be the best of all punishments.
That actually brings me a little bit of peace to know that he's suffering. He should suffer because he devastated us and we can't get it back. So good. I'm glad to hear that he's quite miserable. I hope it continues.
Your Honor, first thing I'd like to say is that I am innocent of these killings. I did not commit any of these murders that I was found guilty of. I feel that nothing here has been proven. There's been a lot of lies, a lot of deceptions, deceiving the people of the Bronx. I'm innocent of these crimes. Thank you, Your Honor.
How do you do? Good to see you. Come and sit down. If you just sit here to start with, please. Thank you.
Look at the camera or look at
This man is one of America's most notorious serial killers. He was convicted of 3 murders and suspected of more, but he proclaims he's innocent.
Alex Enriquez grew up like hundreds of thousands of other people did in the Bronx, but they didn't turn into serial killers. He is a psychopath first before he's anything else.
Enriquez admits he did know all the victims. One was just 10 years old.
All I know is that I just wish my friend was here.
I have not killed anybody in my life, and I don't think I ever will.
But there was no hard evidence.
I thought maybe they had the wrong person, because the person to do this type of crimes really didn't fit the person that was sitting there.
Alejandro Enriquez, a serial killer.
Alex Enriquez.
Alejandro Enriquez.
I remember feeling that I wanted to spit on him, that I wanted to attack him. My heart bled black.
Having refused interviews for almost 30 years, Alex Enriquez is now ready to tell his side of the story.
He comes at you from every angle, and you must take your time and you must let him talk. Because the more he talks, the more mistakes he may make.
Jessica Guzman was just 10 years old when one afternoon in October 1990, she headed down to her local supermarket and never came home. Jessica was the youngest of 3 girls, murdered in a tight-knit community in the Bronx. Suspicion fell on Alex Enriquez, the last person to have seen Jessica alive.
The last time I seen her, she was headed in that direction. May her soul rest in peace.
Highly publicized case involving little Jessica disappeared near her home and was found a week later by the side of the Bronx River Parkway, suffocated.
2,000 mourners turned out for services in the Bronx, including Mayor Dinkins and other top officials.
It was the death of this 10-year-old girl that captured the nation's attention. Her coffin was covered in a flag sent by the president. A serial killer had terrorized this neighborhood for 2 years. But now, the police were under huge pressure to catch him.
So, Elwin, what do we know about Jessica?
She's a normal, regular little girl, 10-year-old girl. When she wasn't found in a few days, we knew we were defeated before we even got started, because she was already not with us any longer.
At the very least, her death stopped this maniac from killing more.
Her death caused a big, huge investigation to be pursued, and in so doing, other homicides, victims came into play. And then it turned out that Alex was the common denominator of all these unfortunate homicides. When you have a conscience, and it's tough to live if you have a conscience. He's lived a long time without a conscience. Hopefully he'll never dare or never be able to get out and do this to anybody else.
Nearly there. Sorry for the delay.
No,
takes
all the time in the world.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. All I've been able to find out about Enriquez is that no one in his community ever thought he could be a serial killer. He grew up in the Bronx, was married, had children, and ran a cab company. Since his time in prison, he's married again.
Alex, you've been incarcerated for 28 years for crimes that you adamantly insist you did not commit. What kind of person were you before you were convicted?
Well, I was a father, I was a son, I was a brother, and I was a husband. Was I perfect? Far from it. Was I an angel? Far from it.
What were your imperfections?
It's sad and embarrassing to say. I was married and I had a lot of girlfriends. That was my biggest, I guess, problem. But it was just that, I guess, as a man, I did things I wasn't supposed to do. I was with this girl, that girl, and you lived the lifestyle I lived. You know, you have a nice car, you dress nice clothing. Women attract to that. It's like a magnet. And I don't like guys, I like women, so it was, it went with...
The women found you magnetic?
I guess so, if I had them. I didn't, pay anybody or force anybody, so I guess they must have liked me.
Most people who are convicted of killing children get targeted in prison. Have you had that?
No, you hear comments. There's a lot of worse crimes in here.
Well, Alex, I mean, you were convicted of killing 3 very young people. One was 10, one was 14, one was 21. What could be worse?
To me, there's nothing worse than taking a child's life, an innocent child's life. When I see something on TV that something happened to a child, I always sort of like get emotional. My eyes get watery because I say, wow, that's what they're accusing me of. So it's not a nice thing.
Two kids went missing in the Bronx, and that's when I first heard the name Alejandro Enriquez, because he was the last person seen with them. Shortly after that, there was another missing person. This was Jessica Guzman. When she went missing, we said, well, who was with the what? One of the housing detectives says, yeah, there was a guy, Alejandro Enriquez.
Despite his declaration of innocence, suspicion has swirled around Alex Enriquez for some time, but until now, not enough evidence.
There seems to be the impression, at least, that people who know you, especially if they're young, don't live long.
Well, you say that, but I must be a magician then. I can't be in 2 places at one time.
When he was arrested, I was very scared they were blaming the wrong guy.
everything I was hearing of what he did to each girl, to me, it was just had to be a monster. And this is not what I was seeing. I remember meeting him. I dropped off Jesse to a friend's house. He was cleaning the car in front of the house. And Jesse told me, "Mom, this is Christina's dad."
Are you capable of hurting a child?
Am I capable of hurting a child? No. Why would I want to hurt a child? Because I have children. And
How many do you have?
I have 2 girls. Ironically, my second daughter is called Jessica. It's the same exact name as the girl, one of the girls they accused me of killing. And I really can't express the pain I feel when I hear that.
Let me just get some pictures of so that our viewers know what we're talking about here. These are the 3 girls. So Shamira was the first to die, then Lisa, and then Jessica. Did you kill these people?
No, I didn't. I never, listen to me carefully, I've never taken anyone's life, not even an animal. Never.
What the police told me about this interview, because I said, you know, what do you think will happen? How will it play out? Because I don't know you. And they said he will have an answer for everything. He will bamboozle you with all sorts of information. He'll try and manipulate you. He'll lie to you. He'll play you. He'll try and play you. He'll try and outwit you. He's a smart guy.
That's their job.
Right.
Their job is to make you believe that I am the killer.
Most psychopaths have very positive self-images. They look at their reflection and in the mirror, in a sheet of glass, and they really like what they see. And they're convinced that their stuff doesn't stink. And they'll go out and tell anybody what they want to hear, as long as in the long run it benefits the person, him or herself.
Enriquez says the police, facing a public outcry, desperately needed a scapegoat. And he was it.
Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez. I have no anger to the families for what they're saying or what they think of me, because they have been misled and they have been deceived. And I could never understand why they've come here and lied against us. A lie, and she's lied, and she's lied.
Everybody lies with you, right, Alex? Everybody with you.
I'm innocent of these crimes. I'm innocent of these murders. I have no anger to the family.
There have been suggestions, and you could perhaps clarify this, that you may have suffered some form of abuse, sexual abuse or otherwise, when you were younger. Is that true?
No.
Nothing like that?
Never. My parents took care of me. I went to the best schools. I had everything.
Neither of your parents are alive, is that right?
They passed away, yes.
While you were in prison?
My dad passed away first, and my dear mother passed away March 11th, 2017.
What was your relationship like with your mother?
Beautiful.
Did she ever ask you if you did the killings?
No, she never asked me.
Did she believe in you to the end?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you accept that whoever killed these girls is a despicable human being?
Yes, sir.
Somebody who would take 3 young lives and snuff them out?
Without a question.
Ruin every dream for them, for their families.
Of course.
In Lisa's case, her parents have never altered the room that she was last in 30 years ago. They go and sleep in there sometimes for comfort. Their lives are ruined too.
How can you ever recover from a tragedy like that? An ugly tragedy. There's no recovery.
This is Lisa's room, almost exactly the way she left it. Gives me a lot of comfort to just be in her room and sleep in her room. I feel like I have her still in my heart and that she's with us here. And I could just hear her now saying, "Mama, I love you," you know?
We had just got a new medical examiner. He came up with something that we had never used before as a cause of death, homicidal asphyxia. We'd use strangulation or suffocation or things like that. But it appears that he held them so tight that they couldn't breathe. It's a slow way to go.
Lisa was 21, and the oldest of the three girls, Alex Enriquez, was convicted of killing. But the police had little to link him to the murder. A pair of his wife's pink sweatpants recovered at the crime scene. And, crucially, a witness who could place Alex and Lisa together. At the time, he was living here with his wife.
One day, Alex and Lisa were standing out front. They were basically sitting or leaning against a car. I guess it was his car. And he introduced Lisa as his niece. And we talked for a bit, and he said he called her a cab. And I found that kind of ironic because he is a cab driver. But anyhow, he waited, and they were waiting for a very long time, and the cab never came. She wanted to go home, obviously, but he wasn't taking her. She looked very young. I had no reason to believe that that wasn't his niece.
In Lisa's case, you say that you had a sexual relationship with her.
Yes, I did. Please understand, I don't want to offend the victims' families. And that's the key, because they've been hurt enough. We would just go out, she'll call me, I'd call her, and we'll go out. She wasn't per se my girlfriend, because she had a boyfriend.
How many times did you have sex with her, do you think?
I don't remember. I wasn't.
Well,
to be exact, I couldn't tell you. I wasn't keeping notes of this.
One of the key pieces of evidence in that instance was that she was found wearing your wife's pink sweatpants. How do you explain that?
Well, I remember when we came from the beach that she was, her clothes had sand and oil. And she said, do I have anything to wear? I said, I don't have anything that'll fit you. And then I gave her a pair of sweatpants that I found in a drawer.
They're your wife's?
This is the crate. I'm assuming they're hers.
She was found dead in those pants.
I gave her a pair of pants. Were those pants?
Alex, she was found dead wearing those pants. That's why.
I understand what you're saying. I heard you.
So if you now concede you gave them to her and she's found dead in them, quite obviously people are going to think, well, what happened?
Okay, I said, let's say I gave her the pants. Let's say she was found dead in the pants. Why would that say that I killed her? Did someone see me kill her? Did they find physical evidence to say that, you know, I perpetrated the crime of murder? No, it was a witch hunt. It was, okay, we have this here, and we have this here, and we have this here. We put it all together, we make him look like the murderer.
The defense tried to build a picture of this man having some kind of relationship with Lisa. Did you believe any of that?
No. Not that he was, you know, that they were having any kind of relationship, no. You know, she would have told us. She would have, you know, mentioned him, which she never did. And
were you aware of him at all?
No.
No. Maybe what happened was that she called him because he was a cab service. She knew him, but only as a cab service, and it's not like they were dating or anything like that.
But the fact that he appears to have given Lisa some sweatpants which came from his own wife seems such a strange detail in all this. Have you ever been able to think about how that could have happened?
The only thing we can figure out is that he killed her at that moment, and he undressed her, and that's how she ended up with his clothes. But otherwise, no.
The truth is, we don't know what to believe with this guy.
No.
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 And Chicky, what are your feelings towards Alex Enriquez?
I can't even begin to tell you how much I hate that. He took our daughter from us.
I understand. I understand. Yeah. It's heartbreaking to talk to you and to see the pictures and to have to relive this with you. I'm so sorry for what you both have had to go through.
Lisa, like all the murder victims, lived within 2 miles of Enriquez's home. His cab service operated right in the heart of a neighborhood.
It was a common occurrence for those kids to be walking on the street, and the parents say, yeah, sometimes he takes them home if he's driving past in the car or something. They didn't have any suspicion about him at all.
Police believed he killed more than 3 girls, but couldn't prove it.
The community has lost 6 young people during the past 4 years, and many believe a single killer is to blame.
Children are disappearing from all over the place.
Still gotta find the person that did this. If we don't find them, they're gonna do it again and again and again.
Bodies are being dumped in our neighborhood, and it doesn't seem like City Hall is getting off their rear ends to say no more.
All the victims had a link to a man who has lived and operated right in the middle of the area where the bodies have been found.
Everybody that comes here that knows him says he did it. Everybody, all the drivers that know, because that guy's, he's sick.
The police say there were no similar deaths once you had been imprisoned in that area of the Bronx.
That's what they say.
There were no more girls snatched off the street and asphyxiated.
Otherwise. None? Okay. You remember, I don't know if you probably don't remember, there was a girl they called Baby Hope.
Mm-hmm. I know that story.
Very similar.
Police say it bore no relation to the deaths here.
I know it.
It's a very different modus operandi.
But what I'm saying...
There's a particular modus operandi for all these deaths.
Like which one? Can you explain?
All 3 of them was taken off these particular streets in a 2-mile radius and killed in the same manner.
And how did Baby Hope die?
The police say it was different circumstances.
No, it was asphyxiation, like they were killed, according to what the police said. So, in the side of the road...
Let me ask you this, Alex. Even if you had killed them, you wouldn't tell me, would you?
If I would have killed him, I would have pled guilty from day one.
Would you?
Yes.
You'd have admitted to being a triple child killer.
It would, obviously, there would be something wrong with me. I needed help.
Do you think there is something wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm innocent. Been innocent from day one. Listen, I'm here Because, first of all, you're not paying me for in the interview. I'm not here because I want to meet you. I'm here because I need to present the evidence. Because, again, let's go back to the fact that I con, liar, cheat, whatever you want to call me. Fine. That has nothing to do with taking 3 innocent lives. It's
what it does...
It's like...
Here's what it does. Here's the problem for you. It makes it very hard to believe you about anything.
But I need you to
Your body language to me. I'm not an expert, but every time you've got overly defensive, your arms go like this, and it's...
No, that's another thing. I'm relaxed like this. I'm relaxed. I get tired of keeping my hands, so I put them here.
It's a very defensive thing to do.
Is it? I don't know nothing about body language.
I would say it is. I've only noticed it in the time I've been with you.
Okay, well, let's take it another step.
I think we've got a slight tape. Sorry, just running out of battery.
Okay.
Alex, just give us one moment. Thank you very much.
For the last 2 hours, I've been struggling to get under the skin of Alex Enriquez.
Oh, I have my hands crossed. He's not here.
I want to know what lurks beneath his cool, calm exterior.
One of the first days that I met him, my partner made a remark to him, and out of a clear blue sky, Alex got so insulted he lost his cool, and he jumped at my partner, and he said, "You're a liar!" And at that point, I saw with Alex, like you pressed a button, and he went off.
We showed my interview to James Fitzgerald, an FBI legend. He caught the infamous Unabomber, ending a 20-year manhunt.
Ted Kaczynski injured 24 people and killed 3 others. For decades, he was one of the most wanted criminals in the U.S.
Are you capable of hurting a child?
Am I capable of hurting a child? No. Why would I want to hurt a child?
Most people would say, no, of course not. He hesitated for actually a few seconds. Then his first reply was, am I capable of hurting a child? He puts the question back to Piers in so many words. And then, of course, he sort of denies it and plays off that whole scenario from there. But why not just come out and say, no, I would never do that? Even with a psychopath, the lying syntaxes have to get aligned with one another to make sure that the proper lie comes out at the proper time. Psychopaths like control. They don't want to be controlled, they want to control others. To them, it just makes sense because it's what got them this far in life in sort of a successful method of surviving.
Please, Mr. Morgan, I allow you to ask me any questions you want because I have nothing to hide. But it's very important that you let me explain why I'm innocent.
See, I have to decide, Alex, are you just a guy in prison now as an innocent man, or am I looking at somebody who did do that? In which case, you're one of the worst people I've ever met in my life.
Okay, and I can understand that because anyone who would commit them atrocious crimes would have to be the worst person you can ever meet.
Owen, do you think that Alex Enriquez planned these killings meticulously, or were they spontaneous acts?
I'd say it could be a little of both, some of both. And the reason I say it is because there may be much more to Alex than I ever knew about or thought about. I may have thought about it, but I couldn't put it together. He seemed to deal with people that he knew were sort of beneath him, or he could charm, or he could con.
Alejandro was the guy that killed her. He was telling her stories that he had a horse in one of the horse stables in the Bronx, and that's how he coerced her to, you know, be interested in hanging out.
You know, we teach our kids that you don't take things from strangers, but he wasn't really a stranger to them because he saw them in the neighborhood. He was friendly. get them candy, you know, and little by little, he gained their trust.
They said she was decomposed. Found in a black garbage bag, decomposed, leaning on a tree. 11 years. We buried her on her 11th birthday, October 20th, 1990.
Police had no hard evidence to connect Enriquez to Jessica's murder. But during interrogation, they say he made a vital mistake. He told them a detail only the killer could have known.
With Jessica, with the evidence you gave about the particular floral design on her...
The what?
The flower design on her underwear. The police didn't know that because they hadn't cleaned her underwear. After you said that, they went and cleaned the heavily decomposed and filthy, dirty garment, and they found that, yes, it was floral. They didn't know that. You had told them that.
I don't know if that's true.
That is true.
Oh, that's what they said to you?
That's the truth.
So then how do I know certain things? And this is one of the reasons that...
Well, Alex, it's obvious why...
I only know the pictures.
Alex, it's obvious why you would know.
How?
If you killed her, you'd know.
Okay. If they showed me the pictures.
Pictures, the undergarment hadn't been cleaned.
They didn't show me a picture of the undergarment.
They
told me.
You just said they showed you pictures.
They showed me pictures.
Well, Alex, either showed you pictures or they didn't.
No. They showed me
Did
pictures.
they show you pictures or not?
They showed me pictures of the crime scene, the bodies.
You gave them a particular piece of information.
Because they told me.
But they did not know. How could they tell you something they didn't know?
That's what they tell you. They
hadn't cleaned the garment. So they're lying too.
Do you really think they said the truth? I'll tell you a little bit of what the police told me in the interrogation room. You're an animal. Look what you did. What, did you have sex with this little baby girl with little flower panties and training bra? What, you ripped it off? Did you cut it off? What'd you do it with, a knife? What knife did you use? Did you use scissors? They'll say anything to try to break you down. And because I didn't do anything, they couldn't break me.
Well, all I can recall in that is that when the panties were re-examined, that's when it was noted, the color and the description. Because at the time of when the body was found, there was a lot of discoloration from the elements, etc. Only a person involved could know such detail. I never wanted the wrong person in jail. I never wanted to bring a case into court that would crumble.
The fact that he kept going after these young girls is a clue that maybe his peer relationships, his sexual activities with women around his own age weren't going quite the way he would have liked. He quite frankly may not have been able to perform at times with them, so what he would wind up doing is regressing in his own psychosexual way to these younger women, these children, in a sense, and that's somehow how he would gain control over them and satisfy those needs of his.
This guy got in touch with us. He said, hey, I was driving up the Bronx River Parkway that night. I saw a car, he says, and there was a guy standing by the trunk. I pulled over and I yelled to him in Spanish, hey, do you need help? He says the guy was very rude. He yelled, get out of here, I don't need any help. He says, oh, okay, you know. By this time we had a photo array up and we showed it to the guy and he picked Alex right out of the photo array. He says that was the guy that was parked, and he was parked 10 feet from where the body was discovered, maybe.
Let's go back to the evidence. What does the evidence say? You have a guy who said he seen me and spoke to me at the crime scene.
Well, let's come to that.
I never spoke to this guy.
This man says he saw you there in the early hours after the death of Jessica. He says he saw you there.
Do you believe that? Have you seen?
You tell me, were you there?
No, I wasn't there. Mr. Morgan, if I was a murderer, a killer, who killed 3 innocent...
A serial killer is what you're accused
serial killer, whatever you want to call it. And a man pulls up to me, and I just finished killing somebody. Don't you think he would have been my next victim? I want you to think about that for a second. He can put me at the crime scene. He can pinpoint me that I was there. Mr. Morgan, I'm not trying to con you or anyone. I understand that your job is to try to discredit me as much as you can. No, let me finish. Let me finish.
I don't have it. My only job is to interview you.
Please.
And to try and ascertain in my mind whether I think you killed these girls or not.
Well, how could you ascertain that if you don't let me explain?
Because I find that the way that you are trying to deflect on every aspect of what links you to these killings, I mean, it's been masterful deflection, but that's what it's been, deflection.
So I'm masterful now?
I think you're a masterful liar, yeah.
Okay, well.
But you were by your own admission.
I'm a liar. Does that make me a murderer?
Not only does Enriquez admit to being a liar, but he's also been convicted before of another crime. How will he react when I question him about this shocking incident that landed him in prison?
Some people, Alex, when they've been in prison for a very long time, they think so much about...
Think so much of what?
About why they're here, that they start to believe their own story.
No, I believed it from day one. If you see the court TV thing, I was very adamant that I didn't do anything.
You were very plausible.
I didn't do anything
I've watched it. I've watched that video.
And I didn't do anything now. And there's nothing anyone can tell me.
What do you say to the families suffering so much from the deaths of their loved ones?
What do I say? Look for the truth.
At trial, the defense argued all the evidence was circumstantial.
He is an accused serial killer, but Alejandro Enriquez remains composed as his murder trial enters its 3rd week.
They only had one thing in common. They all knew Alejandro Enriquez.
His attorney says the DA has a weak case based on circumstantial evidence.
People were so mad and so angry, and the police had to do something.
The evidence in this case is weak and unreliable circumstantial evidence.
I did not commit any of these murders that I was found guilty of. I feel that nothing here has been proven. There's been a lot of lies, a lot of deceptions.
I found it interesting that Enrique, at one of the most critical points in his life, being convicted of 3 separate homicides, he has his moment to shine. The acting skills this person possessed would be, worthy of an Academy Award. He knew how to frame these storylines together to show a little bit of pity towards the family, but he didn't mean that at all. It was all about preserving himself and to save his own butt.
I have no anger for the families for what they're saying or what they think of me, because they have been misled and they have been deceived.
And now he's on the stage for the first time in years, exhibiting his best psychopathic skill sets.
I keep calling him a gentleman. I don't know why, but that's the way I was brought up. But this piece of garbage, he's always there, he's always around where things happened. You say coincidence. Coincidence happens every once in a while. Everybody in that jury room knows that he did it, and he knows that he did it. There was no other person that could have done it but him.
Owen, do you have any doubt that Alex Enriquez is guilty of the crimes he committed?
No doubt. I say they convicted him, and I'm satisfied with that. If they hadn't convicted him, that case still would have been in my craw.
When you see video footage of Enriquez from that courtroom, he doesn't look like a serial killer, capable of choking the life out of 3 young girls who knew him and trusted him. But there is one shocking incident that happened before the murders that shows beyond doubt he is capable of cruelty to children.
How do you explain at the time that you were charged with these offences, you were convicted of scalding a young boy who was the son of your wife?
I wasn't...
Severely scalding him so much you ended up with a quite lengthy prison sentence.
When you say that I scolded and that I was convicted, those are key words.
But they're facts, aren't they?
No, they're not.
You weren't convicted?
I pled guilty to leaving him alone in the bathroom and to a lesser charge because...
What was the lesser charge?
It was an E-felony, assault. I don't want to just say something that's not true. I didn't think he was going to get burnt, or I wouldn't have left him in there. I was preparing him to take him to his father. You think I would intentionally scold him, put his clothes on and take him to his father? That doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah, but Alex, at the very best, it's appalling negligence by you because you were the adult in charge of him.
Exactly.
That's at the very best, but that's not what you pleaded guilty to. You didn't plead guilty to negligence, you pleaded guilty to assault.
Their whole thing was this. They needed to make me look bad to the public as much as they could.
But when a boy of that age gets that badly scalded, that's bad. You haven't got to make it look bad, it's bad.
Mr. Morgan, this interview is not about me lying, me cheating, me fornicating. It has nothing to do with
this is about whether you killed these 3 women.
So let's stick to the evidence of these 3 women. I'm asking you, please. This is what we're here for. If you want to, you called me a liar. You say you think I'm guilty.
I know you're a liar.
I want you to...
I know you're a liar. You said you're a liar yourself.
But I'm not a murderer. Because I lie doesn't
I've
make
got
you
to
a
believe
murderer.
you, and I don't believe you. Because why should anyone believe you?
To satisfy if you're right or wrong, I mean, I don't know if you do care. Get the crime scene video.
I care about these
Get the
girls
crime scene video.
and the lives they never had.
And look at the picture.
And the families whose lives have been destroyed. That's what I care about.
My life has been destroyed. My family's life's been destroyed. But yet I'm innocent, and I'm in here. It's 28 years. And we tend to overlook the evidence.
Alex, we're going around in houses. The viewers can make their own minds up whether they believe you or not. We have to leave it there.
Okay.
You've had a chance to put your say.
No, I didn't have a chance. You spoke, and when I tried to give you the evidence to show you otherwise, you interrupted me, and now we have to go.
Okay. Thank you for your time. We're good.
All right. Well,
we're done.
All right.
It can be frustrating talking to anyone who is just locked into their lie, locked into their story. You'd be the rare guy that broke a psychopath after 28 to 30 years. But Piers held his own, stuck to his guns, and that's what you got to do with these guys. Enrique is the poster boy for a lying psychopath who lacks remorse and empathy.
I'm enjoying the fact to know that I'm hoping you live to 99. Because he was a player, multiple personalities. To this day, I meet somebody that knows him, that knew him. He was only 29 years old, right? Something around there. Young guy, drove a Mercedes, always is suited up. He needs the reaction from other people in order to feel successful, to feel complete. So for him to be in a box by himself, it makes me feel better.
For a while, I just thought I was a very bad judge of character. But what I realized is that I was just fooled. I just didn't see the real person.
Thank you, very good.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you.
When they read the verdict, I just looked over at Jessica's mother, and I was like, I gave you what you needed. I gave her what she needed to hear.
The court imposes an indeterminate sentence, the maximum of which shall be for the term of your natural life, and the court imposes...
Have you ever watched Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, I saw that.
What did you think of that film?
Not much.
A Justice Department investigator calls it terrifying, an epidemic. They're known as serial killers. There are at least 35 of them roaming the country now.
Are serial killers born or made?
There is almost always a pattern to the killings.
These people normally don't stop.
20 killings, 8 murders, 15 human bodies, including 3 heads preserved in a refrigerator.
These men brought unspeakable horror into the lives of Americans in the 1970s. Their names still haunt America today.
Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, son of Sam.
John Wayne Gacy. Ted Bundy.
Diabolical genius, deceptive, manipulative.
Many have been executed, but one of them is still alive.
He had the darkest eyes I have ever seen.
He can put on the mask of Bernard Eugene Giles, but when you take off the mask, he's the monster.
I want to know how these men think and why they kill. And now, finally, a serial killer willing to confess all.
Are you proud of the label serial killer?
One summer in the early 1970s, a young couple moved into this trailer park on the east coast of Florida. Bernard Giles was just 20, his wife was 18, and they had a newborn daughter. Neither his family or his new neighbors had any reason to suspect that Giles was harboring a deep compulsion to kill.
See the trailer with the carport structure? That's where his trailer was.
Sunday afternoon was my laundry day, and it just seemed like I ran into him so much in there. Oh, it's the same. I can't believe that. He would be sitting up here, I usually get those down there.
He never said a word. He would just sit.
Never. And he'd be sitting here and just dangling his legs and just looking.
Wonder why he would sit in here.
I don't know. Because I don't think he ever had any laundry.
Bernard Giles has been in prison for 45 years. After a long period of contact, he's finally agreed to meet me.
Mr. Giles, good to see you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you. Come and sit down. Bernard, thank you for giving us the time today.
Yes, sir.
You're serving 5 life sentences for killing 5 young women. So my first question is, did you kill those women?
Yes, sir, I did.
Let's go back to your early life. With most people that commit heinous crimes,
yes, sir,
you can normally point to something that doesn't justify but might go some way to explaining it. The curious thing about your early life is there doesn't seem to be anything there. There was no appalling upbringing. You were one of 4 kids.
Yeah.
You were well taken care of.
My brothers and sisters have done well.
You were loved as a child.
Yes.
And was the driving force for that compulsion, was it violence? Was it
sexual?
It was all sexual.
It was all sexual. And that's the thing, it's like people who, they become imprinted before they're 5 or 6. I knew the roots of mine. I knew where it came from.
Where did it come from?
the initial sexual imprinting was an act of violence against a girl.
You were 6 years old and you were playing just a game of witch hunt, where a girl would pretend to be a witch and you would all chase after her. She was a neighbor of yours.
Right. It was in a back bedroom. And the part that I remember was straddling her and strangling her, right? Playing. And that was my initial sexual imprint. From that point on, as a child growing up, I became obsessed with this.
The term itself, serial killer, was not well known back in the 1970s. However, later we started seeing these terms come up in the detective magazines and other kinds of TV shows. But mostly we believe that the serial killers happened somewhere else.
Bernard Giles was one of Florida's first serial killers. He terrorized an entire community. In just 12 weeks, he murdered 5 women. 2 of the bodies were found just yards from his trailer, where he lived with his wife and child. Bob Telfer was a young state's attorney at the time. He discovered their remains. It stayed with him ever since. So, Bob, when you found these 2 bodies within 2 days, it must have sent a shudder through everybody.
Well, back then, and of course it was a different time and a different place, and girls were hitchhiking. It was a common occurrence to see that up and down the road, particularly in a small community like this. All that stopped overnight. There was a shudder that went through the community. There was publicity about this. The hitchhiking stopped and people started looking over their shoulder.
What this man did, Bernard Giles, to these young women was just appalling.
It was, and you know, it's every parent's nightmare to realize that the last few moments of her life were terror-filled with a psychopath, and she was going to die at a young age. Just makes it even worse.
Throughout his childhood, there were no outward signs that Bernard Giles was deeply troubled. But into his teens, he was failing at school and dropped out. And then, one day, his obsession took over.
When you were 16, there was a young woman walking in front of you, and you suddenly felt an urge to kill her. Tell me about that.
It was like an opportunity that had presented itself to me. And this woman was getting into a VW, and I had a knife. And I went past the car, and fortunately, I kept going. I just kept going.
What were you feeling in that moment?
Extraordinarily hyped.
And what were you thinking you may do to that woman?
Well, if it had gone the other way, I'd have murdered her.
At the age of 16?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's a chilling thing to hear. This is not, I'm sure you recognize this, this is not a normal
Oh, I understand that.
None of this feels normal.
Sir.
You're 16 years old and you have just this extraordinary compulsion to kill this woman.
Yes, sir.
But it passed, you moved on.
Yes, sir. It just wasn't overwhelming. It didn't, you know, it was just, and I didn't. I just kept moving.
And if you hadn't kept moving, that woman
would have been murdered.
And she would have no idea to this day, I imagine.
No, she never even glanced back at me.
You wished you had killed her?
No, I don't. I'm glad that I didn't. I wish I hadn't killed any of my victims, you know?
Were you in any doubt at that stage that one day it would happen?
No, no doubt at all.
You knew this was something you had to do?
Yes, sir. It was, for me, this was my life's passion up to that point.
To do what?
To murder women.
I mean, there'll be viewers watching this going, this guy was apparently normal, late teenage guy. He's got married, he's got a little baby girl. Life seems fine, and yet ticking away is this horrific time bomb.
And that's very frequently been the case, that you have people that they present as perfectly normal.
You know, you're looking for these sort of trigger points. Where is that trigger? What happens? And it may very well have been the stresses he felt in being married, being a 19, 20-year-old guy with a child. And really, you can see him here. He's not really equipped to be dealing with marriage, let alone a baby. This probably caused a tremendous amount of stress for him. And I'm not surprised that these killings started really within a month or two after the birth of his child.
In October 1973, Bernard Giles drove out of this trailer park onto this highway. His intention? To hunt down and kill his first victim. He was looking for hitchhikers, unsuspecting girls, who, back then, never imagined accepting a lift from a stranger would get them killed.
That day that you went out, when you did kill for the first time, was that a morning when you woke up and you were with your wife and daughter and something hit you and you went,
no.
Today may be the day?
Every day may be the day.
Every day?
Every day may be the day.
Do you know the name of your first victim?
No, sir. Not now. Nancy Jerry.
Did you know anything about her life?
I found out later she was a singer in a bar. That was it.
Tell me what happened.
We picked her up in Titusville. There's a wooded area, and I pulled off the road.
What does she look like?
A little shorter than me, fairly well built, pretty but not particularly pretty, brown hair. That's about it.
And at what point did she realize that you were going to harm her?
Well, not necessarily that I was going to harm her, because most of them don't assume you're actually going to kill them. Most of them assume it's a rape or something like that, or a robbery or whatever, And
had you been talking normally to her?
Yeah, but there wasn't much to the conversation. The weapon speaks for itself.
And what did you then do?
I told her to get out of the car, and that's when she became afraid. Up to that point, I assumed that she thought it was just going to be a rape. I walked her over in front of a tree, and then I shot her.
Just like that?
Yes, sir.
And what were you feeling as you did that?
Very stimulated, very provoked, the thing is, what is your passion in your life? What is the thing that you like to do more than anything else? And you're doing it. You are so there that it's like you can see the atoms vibrating. It's difficult to describe.
Giles is relatively unusual in that his age of onset for the serial killing was age 20. He's unusual because he did a spate of 5 killings within 3 months with almost no cooling off period. That's highly unusual. Usually mid-20s is the advent of the first acting out on the fantasy. There's a long cooling off period of at least a month before the second one. He was acting almost in a frenzy. He was too young and too immature to put enough thought into his crimes to get away with them. There was no way it was sustainable. So it was almost like a childish urge to get as much fun crammed into a short space of time as possible before he got caught. Because inside, he knew he would eventually get caught.
Once Bernard Giles started killing, he made little attempt to hide the bodies of his victims. Their discovery was now making daily news headlines. Titusville, a city where 1 million visitors had come just 4 years before to watch Neil Armstrong blast off to the moon, was now the focus of a desperate manhunt to find the killer.
Ladies, you were all young women. You were all in your early 20s at the time that this all happened. Take me back to life in the area at the time.
Well, this was a sleepy little town right across from the Space Center.
Exactly. And it was, everyone wanted to come here because of the Space Center, the launches and everything. But where we lived in Mobile Manor, it was a really nice area.
The moment you realized that Bernard Giles, he was this guy that lived in that trailer opposite you, what impact did that have on you guys?
Devastated me.
I was stunned. I was like, whoa, look how close this guy was to me. I could have been one of his victims.
What was your criteria for a victim?
Access.
To any woman?
Yes, sir.
Did it matter how old they were or what they looked like? Or?
Generally speaking, no.
It could literally have been any woman that happened to stray into your orbit.
Yes, sir.
When you were cruising in your car and they were thumbing a lift.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that made you at the time an unbelievably dangerous man for any young woman.
Yes, sir. See, I'm not defending the position. I'm describing the position. It was what I was and where I was at.
Were you aware that there was now a hunt for what police began to realize was a serial killer?
Not really until, I had known that they had found a body.
And that was Paula's body?
Yes, sir. Probably, I guess.
Paula Hamrick was a single mother of 2, heading to work one day when Bernard Giles stopped to offer her a lift. Her body was found here. She was his oldest victim, at just 22. Her 2 boys, Stephen and Billy, were just toddlers at the time.
He knew she had kids, but I'm sure she pleaded for her life and told him that she had 2 babies. And like I said, that answered my question. He obviously didn't care because he killed her anyways. I think it was about 12 years old when we went to my mother's gravesite. Oh.
The first victim, you remember the name, but do you remember the names of any of the victims?
No, sir.
None at all?
No.
They meant nothing to you?
Why would I do that? Why would someone embrace the names of the, of their victims? I saw these women as objects.
This woman, Paula Hamrick, who was a mum of 2 young kids who've never known their mother. She'd thought to humanize herself to you. She might still be alive. But she didn't, so you killed her.
Yes, sir.
This is Carolyn. Very young.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember these faces as I show you them?
No, sir. Truthfully, I don't.
14, this girl. As was this one, 14? Do you remember her?
No, sir.
You don't really remember any of these girls by face?
No, sir. Some women actually saved their lives by engaging me in conversations.
How many?
3 I can think of right off. I actually went to the home of one. It got in a conversation about smoking marijuana. She rolled up a few joints. We drove around the neighborhood and smoked one, and I let her off at her house.
And what were you thinking you may do to that woman?
Well, if it had gone the other way, I'd have murdered her.
For a guy like this, really, what's important for him is what he wants. And what he wants, he's gonna get. I wanna kill these women, and I wanna have sex with them. And when I'm done, I'm just gonna leave them right there in the dirt because I don't really care about them. And then I'm gonna go back to my wife, and they won't know any difference. I won't have any change in emotion.
What I struggle with you, you kill 5 women, but all the time you're going back to your marital home.
Yes, sir.
With Leslie, your wife, and your daughter, Heather.
Sure.
How are you functioning in normal married life in this extraordinary 12, 13-week period?
Badly.
What do you mean?
I don't know, it was just, as this thing's taking me over, I'm kind of disintegrating as a person. Me and my wife are fighting all the time. I'm out. It's obsessions take you over.
Did you get any urge to kill your wife?
No.
Never?
No.
Why not? She was there, she was a woman.
I knew her. You know, I never killed anybody I knew. That thing about objectification of the victim. For me, that was an important element.
Do you remember doing that?
No, sir.
Well, it's 45 years since you have probably seen that.
May I see this for just a moment? This is a little strange for me because I recognize elements of my own style, and yet I can't remember doing these, honestly.
You definitely didn't.
No, that's strange. For real.
I mean, that one there, for example.
Yes, sir.
When you look at it, notwithstanding the fact you can't remember it very well, but it's a very macabre image.
Yes, sir,
A young woman, you have a sort of devil-like figure at the top there, skeleton.
That's not a woman.
That's not?
No.
Or is that you?
I don't know.
You had long hair at the time, right?
I had long hair at the time.
So that could have been you, in fact.
It could have been me.
It's got needles, it's got snakes, it's got skeletons, it's a very macabre...
Not a happy scene.
Right. Right.
Giles drew these pictures at the time of the murders. But had there been any early warning signs that might have alerted people to what was coming?
You were at school with him, you hung out with him, every day you saw this guy.
In junior high school, 65, 66, nicest guy you'd ever want to meet.
I mean, we hear this a lot, don't we, with people that do heinous crimes. Often friends will come out and say, oh, he was such a nice guy. But you mean it.
I mean it sincerely. He was just a sweet, young, artistic, gifted, nice guy.
When did you last see him?
It was probably, and I believe that he might have already been killing people then. It was on the river.
Did he seem different to you?
Yes.
In what way?
He was very intensely working on a drawing, and it was pretty dark. I looked over and I saw a tree and some roots, but in the roots of the tree was a female body being engulfed in the tree.
Wow.
In any of the psych reports, all of them describe him as sane. All of them describe him as in charge of his faculties. He's not psychotic, and he's not mentally ill. He's in touch with reality. He clearly understands this concept of right and wrong. And we know he understands it because he made a conscious effort to take these women to a remote location where he wouldn't be discovered and kill them. If he didn't understand the concept, he probably would have just picked them up and then killed them right on the street in front of everybody. He chooses to do wrong because that's what he wants to do.
It seems that Giles was able to hide his true nature from everyone that knew him, including his new wife, Leslie. They'd been married for barely a year when the killings began.
Let me just take you back to just before you first killed. You meet a woman, you fall in love, you get married, her name is Leslie.
Yes.
Tell me about her.
Good woman. Good woman. First time I ever saw my wife. She was a friend of my sister's. She had just made friends with my sister. And it passed through the living room. I was sitting there watching television. And when I saw Leslie, I knew I was going to marry her. You know, there have been numerous instances in my life where it's just, I know something. I just remembered that, you know, that's the one right there.
Do you remember how you proposed to her?
Over the phone.
That was it?
Yeah, not very romantic.
You're a young man, but you married this beautiful young woman, family there, it all seems...
Normal.
Yeah. Did it feel normal to you that day when you got married?
Yes, sir.
But you would have sex with your wife? You had a normal married life in that respect?
Yes, sir.
And did you feel like you loved her?
Yes, but truthfully, I didn't, you know, I did love her. But, I was completely obsessed with this other thing. And I didn't really realize how much I did love my wife until the last time I ever saw her through, half-inch bulletproof glass,
During the killings, his wife was at home caring for their baby daughter. Giles would leave the trailer each day to train as an electrician. But in the afternoons, he would cruise the highways looking for hitchhikers. The police still had no suspects and no leads.
There was a fear factor, and as a result, people were locking their doors, and people were trying to gather more information from the newspapers and from television, which carried very little, but they were following it very closely, but they were still afraid. What's even more scary is it wasn't somebody traveling through, because victims were localized. There had to be someone responsible from within. So who could it be?
And normally when we'd have any kind of a murder or something, within 24 hours, they had a suspect. They knew who they were going after, and pretty much were right. And I remember a lot of times during that period, it got to where I was working like 7 days a week, and it was driving them crazy that it was taking so long to figure this one out.
When I would be on my lunch break or go home from work, I would see some young girls hitchhiking, knowing there's already been 2 or 3 murdered. I would just pull over, roll down my window, and say, "Hey, don't you girls know what's going on?"
The killings had begun in October of 1973. By December, 3 bodies had been found. And then the police discovered the remains of Sharon Weimer. She was just 14 years old. But what is baffling about this murder is where he killed her.
Well, what strikes me about this location is we're so near to the trailer park where Bernard Giles lived with his own young family. And the body was so easily discoverable.
This is a very brazen serial killer. He's almost like crying out to be caught.
In a way, yes, but in another way, you get hunters back in here and everything too, so that the sound of a gunshot wouldn't necessarily tell everybody around that something unusual like that is going on. What we discovered was that there was jewelry there, a necklace and maybe a bracelet.
And quite identifiable jewelry.
We strongly suspected, the police did, that this was Sharon Weimer. And we left, and at the residence were siblings plus her mother. And we showed them the jewelry, and very, very sad. I mean, the kids are crying. Mom's on the couch in denial. No, it can't be that, it can't be that. And the kids are saying, no, Mom, it is, and that's how we got the identification. That kind of stuff sticks with you through the years.
Two of your victims you took back to within a few hundred yards of where you lived. What was your thinking in doing that?
I wasn't thinking. There's no logical reason for having done that.
It's quite a high-risk thing to do, I guess.
Yeah, but I wasn't doing my best thinking at that point in time.
You didn't really care?
Well, they have an expression here, basically off the chain. I was, like I say, I wasn't doing my best thinking.
After each killing, that need to feel that again is there, and it's urgent, but it's even bigger. We see this with so many serial killers. With each one, they have to come up with some new angle to make it more violent, more horrific, more hands-on, more personal, make the victim younger, make the victim beg. They have to try some new angle to keep that thrill alive. But of course, this isn't sustainable. At some point or another, they either get caught or they become so frenetic that they have no choice but to screw up and police find them.
And that is exactly what happened with Bernard Giles. 12 weeks after the murders began, he made a crucial mistake along this isolated road.
When you were finally caught, you tried to pick up two girls at the same time.
Yes, sir.
But it feels like it was an escalation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was getting worse.
That's where you made your big mistake, because they got away. How did they get away? I mean, you had a gun.
The gun misfired. I had hit one of them with the gun, and it discharged. It jammed inside the gun.
And that's when they ran off?
That's when they ran off.
They got away having seen a form in your car which had your name on.
A book.
They saw a book that had a name in it, and the name was Bernard Giles. I checked files, and it gave his address.
Inspector DeWitt come in and he says, you gotta listen to me. Listen to me good. Keep your doors locked. Do not answer it. He says, we're going to make an arrest in these murders. I said, here? He said, yes. I was shaking. We could have been the next victim.
And did you panic?
Basically, yeah. I didn't know that they actually had my name. So about the time that I get home, the police are setting up, and they got me.
I wasn't the only one who peeked out our door to see him when they brought him in to the area. And he was evil. He was Satan personified.
When you were caught, was it a relief?
No, it wasn't a relief.
Were you angry because it meant you probably wouldn't be able to kill again?
No, I wasn't angry. Life got very complicated.
How did your wife react to you being arrested?
Well, at first, she wanted to stay with me, but you know, I basically understood that, you know, I was over. I was done with.
But did she ask you if it was true?
Yes, sir. And the first time she asked me, I lied to her. She knew I had problems.
But not this kind of
you know, she just didn't know how deep it was. You know, I'm sure she must have suspected. I mean, not that I had done that, but after I'd gotten arrested, that, yeah, okay, that's him.
We've been talking now for over an hour, but I was yet to see any real sign of emotion from Bernard Giles. So I wonder, how will he react when I show him a picture of the daughter he hasn't seen in 45 years?
You seem, when it comes to real emotions,
yeah,
pretty cold. I mean...
Yeah, I get that a lot.
When was the last time you cried about anything?
Braveheart. I saw the movie Braveheart.
When?
1998, 99, someplace along in there.
20 years ago.
Been a while.
And why did that make you cry?
Hollywood presents this, you know, really pristine picture of a human being, what you sort of wish you could be. You know, this perfect human being. And I was basically crying because I was mourning my life.
Bernard Giles was just 20 when he was caught. He avoided the death penalty by agreeing to confess to all 5 murders. But he will die in prison. Soon after the killings, his wife and daughter left the trailer park and moved out of the state. He would never see them again.
You lost a wife, you lost your daughter.
I lost everything.
You lost everything, yeah. What, was it worth it, this? I mean,
no, of course not.
And do you know what happened to your daughter? Have you ever heard from her?
No, no, sir.
How does that make you feel?
What can you do with that?
We had a picture there.
Yep.
What do you feel when you see your daughter?
I don't know exactly.
When you look at your own daughter, that age, smiling, innocent, happy, what do you feel about the young women you killed?
I don't put those together.
I mean, what would you feel about a man who snatched your daughter and terrorized and raped and killed her?
I certainly wouldn't appreciate it.
That's it? That's how you'd feel?
Like I said, I certainly wouldn't appreciate it.
You've never apologized.
To who?
Who do you think you should apologize to?
Let me ask you a question. I assume that to the families of the victims.
I mean, it should be incumbent on you as the perpetrator of the crime to work out who you think you maybe should apologize to. I mean, you killed, by your own admission, these 5 young women. Who do you think you owe an apology to?
If I were going to apologize to anybody, it would be the families.
Have you ever done that?
I don't feel I have the right. How do you, you know, you get a letter in the mail from the person who killed your daughter, right? Hey, I'm sorry.
They may well be watching this, those families. I mean, if you look at that camera, if they are watching, what would you say to them?
I really don't know what to say, truthfully.
I mean, don't say it to me, say it to them.
What do you say to somebody that you murdered a member of their family?
Right.
I don't know.
Isn't the very least you could say?
Is I'm sorry?
Isn't that the very least you could do? Is just to actually
Of course I'm sorry. The fact that we're having this conversation in this way, yes, I'm sorry.
Here's an opportunity for you to speak to the families of these victims. What would you say? What's your response? He doesn't say anything. He just says, what can I say? I could say I'm sorry, which isn't even saying I'm sorry. He's basically saying that's what I could say, but what does it mean? The question is, what can you say to the victims' families? In other words, make a connection here. Give us a small piece of your soul to the victim's family. He couldn't do it because I don't think that he even has that capacity.
Titusville lost its innocence through the acts of, but we called him Bernard Eugene Giles. We always used the 3 names. We started looking at everyone in a suspicious manner, and we started locking our doors.
This guy lived in our area, had been schooled in our area, and he did such a horrible thing. Not once, but many times. From then on, yes, I knew what a serial killer was.
I'd probably like to sit down and talk to him, and say, where'd you go? Why'd you do this?
He says it was just a compulsion that he had to kill.
Yeah. Wow.
When you finish here with me, I'll go back to my normal life. And I'll when I go back to my hotel room this afternoon, I'll feel quite unsettled by this encounter. When you go back to your cell later, having talked about all this today with me, will you have any feelings about it, really?
Probably.
And what are they likely to be?
Truthfully, I have a great deal of respect for you. And it unsettles me just a little bit that you have such a monstrous view of me.
I have a complicated view of you because to me now, if I didn't know what you'd done, and we had a regular conversation about stuff going on in the news, I would imagine we'd have a perfectly normal, rational, and probably quite interesting conversation. But it's very, very hard to get past what I know that you did to these girls.
I understand.
It's very hard.
I understand.
Not to feel that sense of just utter revulsion.
Yes, sir. And I understand that. I understand all of that.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, that was one of the most extraordinary encounters I've probably ever had with anybody, because on one level, he's obviously self-aware about what he did, because he's just prepared to admit everything. What he can't do is what I suspect the families of these victims really want him to do, and that's explain it in a way that could bring any kind of closure to them. I just feel in the end that their loved ones, these poor girls, were just in the wrong place at the wrong time and met an unbelievably dangerous person. And it's as simple as that, and as heartbreaking as that.